The World Cup kicks off in wild fashion. Meanwhile, Yamal and Williams are now fit for Spain. Newcastle plan to replace Gordon with this La Liga rising star. And Bernardo Silva rejects Barca and Atleti, joining Mourinho's Madrid instead. This is DMAC Daily. 4 red cards in the entire World Cup of 2022 and 3 in 2026's opening game alone. Are you kidding me? Okay, this is gonna be a wild ride. The show has officially begun as host nation Mexico opened their World Cup campaign with a stellar 2-0 victory over South Africa at the iconic Estadio Azteca, a fitting venue as one of the spiritual homes of this great tournament. The first stadium to now host 20 games and feature in 3 separate World Cups respectively. But before we deep dive the match itself, we first quickly got to talk about the pre-game scenes. A pretty cool opening ceremony got the party started with Mexico's rich ancestral culture on display before Shakira took over. That was a lot of fun, as was J Balvin's feature amongst several other artists. Then we got the updated walkouts, where instead of the traditional starting 11s of each team that would enter the field for their national anthems, FIFA decided to scrap that, so we now see all 26 squad members enter the pitch. Personally, I'm not a fan of this specific change-up. My whole philosophy towards the beautiful game is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Did this really need changing? It was already perfect, but FIFA just can't help themselves, can they? That being said, I did kind of dig the aesthetics of the enlarged flags on either side, and the pyrotechnics and fireworks that were added were kind of cool. Now onto the match itself, and like the reverse fixture 16 years ago, it would be the home side's left winger to open the scoring emphatically, with Julian Quinones pouncing off of Lira's brilliant interception and slotting past the helpless Williams in goal. It may not have been as iconic of a goal as Shabalala's, but it was an incredible start from the home side. From then on, they completely dominated the contest. Quinones at the heart of everything. It shouldn't be a surprise at this point to see this man thriving on the world stage. He is by far Mexico's most in-form player. In fact, believe it or not, there are only a select few on the entire planet that have scored more goals than this guy in 25-26 as the Saudi Pro League's top scorer. But his club performances have never really translated to the international stage, having not scored in his last 17 appearances for El Tri. Well, today, that was a different story. He hit the post soon after and proceeded to be at the heart of everything offensively. Then, earlier in the second half, South Africa's job got a lot harder. Sitole was sent off for a silly challenge. A disastrous day for the midfielder, having also been dispossessed for the opening goal too. Less than 20 minutes later, and their day got a whole lot worse as Raul Jimenez popped up at the back stick, scoring a classy header to make it 2-0. A dream moment for the 35-year-old, scoring his first ever World Cup goal and becoming Mexico's second all-time top scorer in the process. But there'd be more history to make as Gilberto Mora, the 17-year-old, became the World Cup's 6th youngest ever debutant. Looking forward to hopefully seeing more of the Wonder Kid as the tournament unfolds. We saw a further 2 red cards shown late on in this match to both South Africa and then Mexico, but there were no additional goals to show for it. A great day still for Mexico, a catastrophe for South Africa, dodgy at the back, feckless going forward. Truth be told, if it wasn't for Williams in goal, it could have been a lot worse. They've got a serious mountain to climb if they want to get out of this group. Elsewhere in the World Cup, and South Korea have pulled off a huge result, coming from behind to defeat Czechia 2-1. This was by some margin the better football game of the pair today, a fascinating contest between the technical prowess of Korea against the physical might of their European opponents. The only thing missing was a full house, a lot of empty seats in Guadalajara, but I'm not really surprised. According to The Athletic, lower tier tickets for this game were selling for $500 US. Ridiculous. In addition to that, a lot of the empty seats actually came from corporate hospitality packages. If an individual wanted to buy those very same seats, they cost $5,000. Beyond insane. But I don't want to focus on the greed of FIFA any longer today. I was so impressed with South Korea. The football they produced was phenomenal, outplaying Czechia for large periods of this game. They were rather wasteful in front of goal at times, Heung-min Son with multiple gilt-edged chances. It looked like it wasn't going to be their day when Czechia's skipper Krejci came in clutch from a set piece once again. He's got a real habit of doing this for his country, but Korea then rallied and hit back in scintillating fashion. Lee Kang-in, who for me was the best player on the park, with a delightful ball in that pocket of space, finding in Biom, who then Cruyff turns the centre-back, sending him for a hot dog before slowly chipping past the keeper. Take a freaking bow. Then, Korea's manager makes a big call, subbing out captain Son for Besiktas's Gyu, who then goes on to bag the winner 11 minutes later in what was another beautifully orchestrated goal. The intricacy of the passing, the delivery, the goal, all truly superb. Czechia pushed for an equalizer, but the goalkeeping heroics of Kim unfolded, pulling off two big late saves to ensure the 3 points for the Asian Giants. They look the real deal just quietly. Excited to see how they progress in this year's tournament. I tip them to finish second. We'll see what happens. Staying in World Cup news, and Spain's superstar attackers Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams have returned to full training and are now expected to be available for Spain's World Cup opener against Cabo Verde on the 15th of June. Now, Spain's manager Luis de la Fuente confirmed earlier this week that both players are on course for the match, although he stopped short of guaranteeing either would start. Yamal's recovery has obviously been the biggest storyline within Spain's World Cup preparations. That and no Madrid players making the team. The superstar 18-year-old suffered a hamstring injury in April while playing for Barca, an issue serious enough to rule him out for the remainder of the domestic season. Early reports even indicated that he could miss the group stages of the World Cup altogether. So he was obviously out of action for Spain's final warm-up fixtures, allowing him to continue rehabilitation in their base camp in Chattanooga. The mood within camp is now cautiously optimistic, with several outlets reporting that De La Fuente may initially manage his minutes rather than immediately throwing him into a starting role. Meanwhile, Williams has followed a similar path. The Athletic Bilbao winger suffered a moderate hamstring strain towards the end of an already injury-plagued campaign. There were serious concerns he may not even make the squad, but fortunately for La Roja, the injury proved less severe than initially feared, with Williams now also returning to full training. Since famously winning Euro 2024, De La Fuente's system has revolved around these two attacking stars. They give Spain something previous generations often lacked: genuine 1v1 specialists out wide, capable of destroying their opposition fullbacks and creating chances without lengthy possession sequences. Yamal's ability to unlock games from the right and Williams' explosive pace down the left have become central to Spain's modern attacking identity. So it's great news to see them back. Maybe not so much for Cabo Verde or any other Group H opponents, that is, but my take is I want to see all the greats in action, and as far as new gen players, there's none greater than Lamine Yamal. I'm curious whether Williams does start if fully fit. There's an argument to be made that perhaps Victor Munoz is more deserving right now. He's had a great season at Osasuna and recently scored his first goal for Spain too. There's also Pino, Olmo, maybe even Ferran Torres could fill in on the left side too. Now, I don't know about the actual status of their availability. We'll soon find out, but I do wonder if it might be wise for De La Fuente to avoid either of them racking up serious minutes, because with all due respect to Cabo Verde, Spain should be able to get the job done without a full strength side. But maybe I'm underestimating the World Cup debutants, because they recently cooked Serbia and also topped their World Cup qualifying group, having lost only once. Impressive stuff. Meanwhile, there has been a late change to Argentina's World Cup squad, with new Tottenham signing Marcos Senesi receiving a last-minute call-up ahead of the tournament. Senesi had initially missed out on Lionel Scaloni's final 26-man squad. However, the 29-year-old will now be rushed back into the team, replacing the injured Leonardo Balerdi, who sadly suffered a muscle injury in his right calf during a training session. Not really surprising that Senesi was called on. Like Balerdi, he's a left-footed central defender. There was a lot of initial controversy that he wasn't selected in the first place, because he's probably the most informed centre-back within Argentina right now, captaining Bournemouth to Europa League football and now earning a big transfer to Spurs. Realistically, Senesi is unlikely to displace the established partnership of Romero and Martinez when everyone is fit, but maybe the dynamic changes throughout the tournament. In other World Cup injury news, and Japan's captain Wataru Endo has also been ruled out of the tournament entirely. The 33-year-old also announced his immediate retirement from international football. A huge loss for Japan. Remember, they're already without stars Mitoma and Minamino. And there was further heartbreak for Morocco too, as Abdi Ezalzouli and Naif Agued have also seen their World Cup dreams end due to injury, with the Atlas Lions calling up Amina Sabai and Marwan Sedan to replace the pair. Switching gears to transfer news, and Newcastle have profiled their Anthony Gordon replacement in rising star Victor Munoz. Now, following the left winger's €80 million departure to Barca 2 weeks ago, Newcastle have been on the hunt for a like-for-like replacement early in the window. Last week, the Telegraph broke the story about their interest in Munoz, and today, Fabrizio Romano reports that a deal for the Osasuna winger is at an advanced stage, with the player himself keen. The complication, however, is Real Madrid's involvement. Los Blancos retain a 50% sell-on clause. They also have matching rights and a buyback option when they previously sold Munoz. The fact that Newcastle are pushing ahead regardless tells you just how highly they rate the 22-year-old. Remember, Munoz only left Madrid a year ago in search of regular first-team football, and that decision has paid off spectacularly. At Osasuna, he has gone from a promising talent to a La Liga standout, producing 7 goals, 5 assists, which led to the 22-year-old being rewarded with a place in Spain's World Cup squad. He even announced himself on the international stage by scoring on his senior debut earlier this year. From Newcastle's perspective, the appeal is obvious. They just lost one of the Premier League's most explosive transition wingers. They see Munoz as the ideal solution. He's comfortable on either flank, yet has really thrived as an aggressive left winger, one that possesses the athleticism Newcastle value in their pressing system, and most promisingly, his price tag appears to be fairly cheap in such an inflated market. The biggest question now is whether Real Madrid do intervene. It doesn't appear they're likely to activate their buyback clause because they already have ample depth in the left wing department, and sure, he can do a job on the right, but they're getting paid either way. So I think this deal is a win-win-win for all parties involved, if it comes to fruition, that is. Staying in Madrid, and just when you thought the transfer beef involving Barcelona and the two Madrid giants couldn't get any crazier, a certain Portuguese free agent has now added even more fuel to the flame, as Bernardo Silva, who was widely expected to join either Barca or possibly Atletico Madrid this window, has since rejected both clubs in favor of joining Jose Mourinho's Real Madrid. For Barca, this is gonna sting. Silva had been linked with a move to Catalonia for years. Under Xabi, he was arguably the club's dream midfield signing, with multiple attempts made to bring him from Manchester City. Financial restrictions ultimately prevented a deal from materializing, but the association between player and club has never really disappeared. Yet, as mentioned, Barca aren't the only side to now miss out. Recent reports indicated that Atletico Madrid had emerged as serious contenders for the Portuguese international, with Diego Simeone desperate to add experience and elite technical quality to his midfield ranks. The fact that he was a free agent too was all the more appealing in a market where the fees for midfield talent is extremely inflated right now. Securing one of the defining players of Pep Guardiola's Manchester City era without paying a transfer fee at all could prove to be one of the bargains of the summer, which is why Real Madrid have swooped in out of nowhere. In a transfer window already dominated by rivalry between Spain's 3 biggest clubs, Silva's commitment to the Bernabeu is now a symbolic victory for Perez's Madrid. The move also represents a shift in transfer strategy from Madrid. In recent years, they've focused heavily on elite young talent, but Perez, alongside Mourinho, now appear determined to add proven leaders to a squad that has endured 2 disappointing seasons now and significant dressing room turbulence. Konate, Dumfries, and Silva are all arrivals for the here and now. Silva's versatility is also very attractive. He can operate as a central midfielder, attacking midfielder, or a right winger, or even in a deeper midfield role. So they've got themselves an outstanding acquisition in my eyes, all at the expense of their biggest rivals. That is a transfer hat-trick right there from Papa Perez himself. Anyways, legends, that's all for today's DMAC Daily World Cup edition. Day 1 is complete, 2 games down, 102 to go. I'm also doing daily match reviews on top of this too, so make sure to check those out if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.